Hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. This is Conversations with You, our theater alumni panel. We are so excited that all of you are joining us for the first of what we hope are many more episodes of this panel series. I am Kyra Leeds, Usdan's Community Relations Senior Associate. I am also an actor, and I am also a former camper, an alum myself. And before we begin, we would like to take a moment to make a land acknowledgement. Usdan sits on the territory and ancestral homeland of the Massapequa peoples of Great Waterland. The Massapequas did not sell nor give away this land. The land was taken from them. We offer this acknowledgement to take a step towards correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture. We can honor the living heritage of the Massapequa by aiming to live peacefully and harmoniously with the natural life of Usdan's woods. And to help our panelists bring themselves back into their memories they have of the magical Usdan woods, we are going to play a short video about our theater department. So Olivia, take it away.
One moment.
Thank you. I hope that brought you all back. And if you are new to us, I hope that gave you a little sense of our theater department. And with that, I would like to pass the mic or metaphorical mic over to our moderator for the night, Michelle Simone Miller.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited that we're doing this. This is going to be amazing. The panelists we have for you today are just so incredible, such lovely people with such great stories. My name is Michelle Simone Miller. I'm also an actress. I'm in New York City based, and I have credits in film and TV and commercial and off-Broadway, mostly just do TV and film right now. And then I also have a podcast called Mentors on the Mic that I love to share with people, where I interview incredible people in the entertainment industry about how they started and how they moved up. I love doing panels. I love moderating. I love interviewing. So this is a huge passion for me. So I'm so glad to be included. I'm also a Usdan alum. So this is just full circle. This is so lovely. And we're starting this series. You guys are part of our first part of this series of Conversations with You. So I wanted to let you know a little bit about it. Through Conversations with You, Usdan's panel discussion series, we bring together alumni from various fields to discuss their careers and their lives. Through Conversations with You, we hope to connect our impassioned community, all of you guys, and draw inspiration from the ways in which former Usdan students are contributing creatively to the world. We actually already know our next event. It'll be April 20th, which is Wednesday at the same time. So 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, if you're like me in New York. And at the same time, it will feature alumni from the music department. So we're really excited. We hope you'll join us. The registration link is below, is in the chat right now. So if you are interested, sign up now. And just so that way it's in your calendar, you don't even have to worry about it. Before we start the panel, we're curious as to who you guys are out there. So we first wanted to ask you a couple polling questions, super, super easy. The first one will be like, who was in the room? Who are you? Did you go to camp? Did you go to Usdan? Are you a current camper? Are you an alum like me, like some of our panelists? Are you staff or faculty? Are you just a friend? Are you just a friend of and supporter of Usdan? And then also what brings you here today? Are you interested in reconnecting? Is that like your main thing? Do you want to learn from these, people, whether it's theater, film, or performing arts? Is it just nostalgia because you miss Usdan? We're just curious as to why you're here so we can start developing more stuff for you guys. We want to maybe not only do series like this, like panels, but we'd like to do maybe workshops for you guys, or we'd like to bring in faculty. So based on your answers, we'll have a very strong idea of our next thing we put together for you guys. So once we get a good group of that going, we'll have the answers for you guys, and then we'll have a really strong idea of who's here. And then we'll introduce the panelists, which I'm really excited about. Excellent. So that'll come up momentarily. Meanwhile, I guess we can also just go right into, mine disappeared. Oh, great. Okay. So we're mostly it looks like alum and current campers, right? We have 38%, 33%. Some parents, hi guys, some staff, some donors, this is excellent. And then most of you are here just for fun. I love that you guys mostly chose that. We have 79% for just like Michelle and just here for fun. So that's great. Some are interested in reconnecting and some are specifically here to learn from the panelists. So speaking of, we have such a great group of people here. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. I can call on you guys if it's easier. Just introduce yourself very, very briefly. And then also we'd like to know one thing about your time at Usdan, maybe a specific memory, maybe how you were as a camper at Usdan, anything like that. The thing that comes to mind for me is that I was in Fiddler on the Roof when I was at Usdan, and I was so proud. I was like, the small part, but I was really excited about it. My sister, who's younger than me, went to Usdan as well, and she missed my show. She missed my performance, and I'll always remember that, and I'll always bring it up to her occasionally that she went to her counselor's talent show instead of going to my performance, and I'll never forget. So who wants to go? Nikki, how about you go first?
Yeah,
Who
absolutely.
are you, and what's a cool, fun, just some memory from being a Usdan camper?
I'm Nicky Maindiratta. I'm an actor here in New York. I went to Usdan from 2000 to 2010, so I was a lifer 3 times. And I don't feel like I'm a good authority on what I was like as a camper. I think Kyra is probably a better authority on what I was like as a camper. Whatever I say, I think it will probably be the opposite, and steeped in the same delusion that I was steeped in then. I think so my sister went for the same 10 years as I did. And she was in orchestra, and I missed a couple of her performances around the time that we were in rep. And so hearing you say that,
she'll never forget.
I'm thinking if she's watching right now, I'm in a little bit of trouble.
I hope she is, because I can really connect with her.
Yeah, I used the pressure of the show's coming up for the last few minutes, but everyone is for every department, and it really was just an excuse.
Cool. And Nikki, can you also just give us an idea of maybe a couple of the things you've been in, so that if people want to watch it later, they can?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of voiceover work, as I imagine evidenced by all this. I have a few things coming up soon that I can't talk about yet, but hopefully soon people will know about. I've been on Kimmy Schmidt. I've done a few movies that are on Amazon Prime right now. One of them is called The Social Ones, which I'm a really big fan of. And a lot of on-camera commercial work as well. So I think just having the TV on in the background, you might maybe notice me.
Love it. Excellent. Thank you, Nikki. Victoria, about you, can you give us a little bit about you, as well as some sort of memory about Usdan?
Hi, Usdan memories right here. Let's see what kind of camper I was. I was the type of camper who was thrilled to never set foot in a pool for the however many years I was there. Very grateful to have gone to a camp that did not force me to do sports or athletic stuff. I was also the type of camper who, I think it was Fridays, they would have the Flintstone push pop ice cream as you left the camp, and I would always try to use my acting skills to finish one quickly and get another one without getting caught. So basically I was hungry. That was the type of camper that I was. And who I am today, I'm also an actor living in upstate New York City. And I've done primarily musical theater. I was on the national tours of The Addams Family and Finding Neverland and a bunch of other things. I think my proudest would be there is a cast album of a show called Golden Boy of the Blue Ridge, which was an off-Broadway adaptation of Playboy of the Western World set to bluegrass music set in Appalachia, and one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. So that's me.
That sounds so beautiful. I want to look that up. I'm glad you
You should.
mentioned that. That sounds really cool. Joanne, how about you? You're next on my Zoom for free. So can you give us a little bit about you and some memory of Usdan?
Hi. First of all, I want to start by thanking everybody who was involved with putting this all together, and Michelle and Kyra and Olivia, and just thank you for inviting us and putting us all together in this one room. It's very exciting to be, interacting with everybody, especially after the past 2 years. So that's the first part of my spiel. I will say that I spent 3 years as a ballet major, and I got to study with Valentine Froman, who was the last partner of Anna Pavlova. And it was amazing. And I don't know how things are now, but back in the old days when I went to camp, we had to wear black leotards and pink tights, and there was no going back on that. So that was, a thing, and there was something beautifully formal about that. And then studying with a Russian teacher was also amazing. So that was a fantastic experience. I left for 3 years to go to Yiddish Socialist summer camp, sleepaway camp, and then I came back, and I did the theater. I was part of the theater department, which was amazing. And little side note, side thing, no lie, at the end of the season, I was cast as Rose in Gypsy. And I don't know if you all know the show, but there's a little dog, and Rose walks around with a little doggy, Chowsy, during the whole show. And I'm pretty sure I smuggled my doggy on the bus, my little doggy Lamb Chop, onto the bus, and hid him and brought him into camp. And nobody knew about it until we were doing the show, and they were watching and they're going, why is there a dog on campus? And I was like, it didn't occur to me that if the doggy was in the show, that people would see the doggy in the show. Anyway, we had 2 performances, did it twice. Going forward, I actually was on staff with the theater department for 1 summer, and I worked with Jim and Corvia, who may or may not be on the call. And he's up there. Yeah, it was awesome. It was a really great experience. And all of the theater professionals that I worked with and all of the students that I worked with, I learned so much about teaching and about humanity from that experience. So no complaints here. And what else did I do? Oh, and I performed. I came back a bunch of times to perform at the assemblies with Jordan Leeds, whose camera is not on, but happens to be Kyra Leeds' dad. And he's also an amazing performer. So I feel like Usdan has been surrounding my life for decades. So anyway, thank you.
I love that because
I'm also a professional actor, and I've been on the Council of Actors Equity Association for a really, really long time. So lots of these things have interacted. So I guess.
No, it's so cool that you went to this like Yiddish camp, because you've done a lot of Yiddish theater as well. So I'm glad that kind of made itself out and you were able to utilize both things. That's super cool.
It was actually the experience at camp that translated into the rest of my life. So literally my teens have guided my entire career. So
cool. I love that. Thank you, Joanne. And Larry, can you give us same thing, a little bio about yourself as well as like a little memory from your time at Usdan?
Cool. Hi, I'm Larry Saperstein. I play Big Red on a show on Disney Plus called High School Musical, the series, which is where I feel most people will know me from. I went to Usdan for 9 summers, I think. I think I started in 2004 or 2003, and I did it until I think 2012. So for most of my elementary school, middle school time. Also, both of my parents, who are here right now, I believe, My dad, Scott Saperstein, was part of the theater program. He taught theater, he directed theater for all 9 years that I was there. And my mom, Elissa Saperstein, Saperstein, ran the Discovery program at Usdan for, I think, 5 years. The little kids, if you went to Usdan during that time and you were like 5 or 6 years old, my mom was the head of that program. So we were a full Usdan family for like those 9-10 years of my life. I have so much to thank Usdan for. I was like on the little brochure that was sent around for a year. People jokingly called me the face of Usdan, some of the people that were on staff in the theater program. So that was like my nickname running around. A great memory I have is on the very, very first day of camp, my very first year, I was 5 years old. I lost my backpack, and it actually turns out that somebody who was in my group in Discovery took my backpack home by mistake because they looked the same. And when we figured out who that person was that took my backpack home, we became best friends for 10 years. And to this day, for the entire time that I was at Usdan with my friend Jake. And we're still friends to this day from the very first day of camp.
That's so great. Oh my God, I love that story so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It gives me all the warm feels. Guys, thank you so much again for being here. And to the audience, this is the time where I'm going to be like, guys, if you have any questions for these people, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. And if you put your questions now or at any time in the chat, we're going to like pick them and read them out loud for like in the Q&A portion, which will be like the last 15 or so minutes or 20 minutes. So if that's the case, if you have any questions for them, start putting them in the chat and we'll ask them later. Cool? Everything good with that? Anyone who has their video on, can I get a little thumbs up? Perfect. Excellent, guys. All right, let's start. Okay, so my first question to you guys, let's start off really exciting. It's already been like so fun thinking about Usdan. So my first question for all of you is, what was like a story of like one of your first big bookings, right? And this could be like a small thing, like my first major booking, I feel like out of college was like a one-line role in a film. And that was really, really exciting for me. And that had a story to it. When I was 11 and I was in an off-Broadway show. So that was also really exciting to me. So anything that comes to mind that's like the thing that like really just excites you, can you tell us a little bit about that? So any one of you want to go first? If not, and we can just like piggyback off each other. Anyone has like something that comes to mind right away? Well, all right, well, I'll pick. So Larry, so obviously you can talk about High School Musical, but you also
Sure.
booked something really big before that. So I don't know if High School Musical will be that story for you, or for, you know, if there's something else that comes to mind.
I think it's like always, like it's always a different story, but it's always kind of the same story too, of like it never happens when you think it's going to happen, and it always happens when you're like not looking for it, and you kind of turn around and all of a sudden you're pushed into some new exciting thing. I know with High School Musical, I was in college at the time. I was like working 3 jobs. At like 2 of them were at school. One of them was at this tap studio that I had trained at in New York, and I was like a receptionist. And I actually got like basically fired from that job because I missed like 1 too many days. And like the last straw was actually my audition for High School Musical. And so I did the audition, and then a whole bunch, I like flew down to Florida to visit my grandparents because it was like our winter break. And then I was there for like 24 hours, and I was asked if I could fly back to New York for a callback, cut my trip short. And I did. And then they like flew me to LA, and kind of the rest is history. I flew to LA. I did a network test, which is basically where you do like a reading with other cast members if people are already cast, or other people that are seriously being looked at for other roles, for like producers and big executives at the network. In my case, that was Disney Channel. And then I flew back to New York, and a few days later I had the role, and then I had to like fly to Salt Lake City in like 3 days and pack up all my stuff and go there for 5 months to start shooting. So it was like, it's always kind of a whirlwind, and you never really know the impact that it's had on your life and on your kind of world until either it's over or you've been doing it for a while. And that's kind of, in some ways, I think that's magical. I know it's probably different for theater too, but but just as a musical TV show.
Love it. No, excellent. And so we just to go back for a second, did you book it or did you audition for it in New York? Is that what I heard? Or
Yes. Yeah, I was living in New
so
York
cool.
at the time. Yes.
Excellent. Love it. I'm biased, so I love that part. Excellent. Well, thank you, Larry. And then let's go to Joanne. Joanne, what was something that came to mind for you when I asked that?
Well, I think that my first job was out of school. I had spent the summer doing summer stock up in Binghamton, where I went to school, and I came home and I did a couple of chorus calls and a couple of auditions, and I got cast in this show that was very weird and unusual. It was called Give Me Gershwin, all that alliteration. And I remember at the time I came home and I said, oh, I've got this piece of paper, and it was like a plain piece of paper. And I said, this is the contract. And my parents were like, oh no. And they flew me to Florida, and it was a nightmare. But on opening night, they gave us our equity cards, so that was amazing. So then when I got another show booked at the same theater, and then when it was Kiss Me Kate, and then when that show closed Thanksgiving weekend, about 2 months early, I remember thinking, oh, now what happens? Am I going to get sent home? Here I am stuck in Florida. And because it was a union job, suddenly they took us home. We got severance. All those things happened. And it really affected who I am as a person and who I am as a theater professional, because at that very moment I was thinking, oh, thank you, because otherwise I would probably still be living on Oakland Park Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale.
Excellent. I mean, we're so happy to hear that. And also we got a couple questions after you asked that about what's an equity card. So do you want to just quickly, I mean, we kind of maybe answer in the chat a bit, but can you want to answer that quickly for them?
Sure, quickly. Actors Equity Association is the union that represents live theater performers, and it is basically, if you're in a Broadway show, you have to join the union. I'm sure that Larry is a member of one of the other theatrical unions for sure, because he's probably SAG-AFTRA, and it was always something I wanted to. I knew that I wanted to be a theater professional, and I knew that if I wanted to be on Broadway, I was going to have to join the union anyway. So this was a goal of mine, and anyone who wants to talk union with me, I'm always available. So it wasn't my biggest job, but it was certainly an influential.
No, influential is perfect. That's exactly what we want. And yes, I'm also part of SAG-AFTRA. So if anyone has any questions about SAG, I can help answer that too. Victoria, how about you? What was something that came in mind when I asked that about like a story about the first booking, or something that came in mind for that?
Not my biggest booking, but maybe my favorite story also has to do with getting my equity card and joining the union. I left college. My first and only show I did like the summer after I graduated was a tiny production of Little Women in a converted firehouse. It was very non-union, very small. Very few people saw it. And shortly after that, I came back to New York and was living at home on Long Island with my parents and commuting into the city, taking the 6 a.m. commuter train to get in there. And I was non-union, so I couldn't sign up for an audition slot. The way it works, at the time then, was if you are a member of the Actors Union and they have equity auditions, you can go there, show them your equity card, and you sign up for an audition time. You come back at that time and you sing your song, you give them your headshot and resume. That's how it works. When you're non-union, oftentimes you sit out in the lobby and you just wait for hours and hours and hours and like hope. It's a lot of this. So I'm sitting there, no makeup on. I had a pixie cut at the time, and I'm looking through my paperwork for the day. And from over my shoulder, I hear somebody go, "Joe March?" And I was like, yeah. He goes, "Oh yeah, you were Joe March, right? I saw that. You were great." I said, "Oh, thanks. Okay, well, what are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm here to audition for this show called Meet John Doe at the Goodspeed Opera House. I don't know much about it. I probably won't get seen. I'm non-union." And he goes, "Oh, you'll get seen. I wrote it." And I was like, oh, okay. And so I sat and waited. And at the end of the day, he was like, and he brought me in and I auditioned, got called back, got that job, got my equity card, and all due to a little tiny production of Little Women.
First of all, it's a great show, but I love that. And I also love, I love actors who, are also storytellers, obviously. So it's really easy to tell stories like all of you. But the fact that you're acting out the story as if it's there is so helpful for us as, listening to your story. So thank you for that. It makes me so happy. And so Nicky, what about you? What was something that came to mind when I asked you that question?
I was trying to think of something that I'd link to Usdan specifically. So this was not my first booking, but I had started acting when I was 7, so overlapped a lot with my time at Usdan. And a lot of what I was auditioning for and booking were jobs that my fellow campers, or people my age at least, wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to see or be allowed to see. A TV show they weren't allowed to watch, a commercial for something that was not targeted towards them. And so I was always being whisked away after camp to go into the city for an audition or something. And it felt to me at the time like I had nothing to show to my friends to represent all the work that I was doing, until I booked a Pokemon commercial in which I was the voice of a Pokemon named Mudkip, which I imagine many, many people at home a light bulb will go off. And I came into camp the day after it premiered, feeling pretty good about the fact that some people might have seen it, and maybe a little excited to have it brought up, and was only roasted for it, was only made. But that is something I think about very fondly, that there was no opportunity for ego. There was no opportunity to think about myself in some kind of different way because of that. It was just, everyone was on the same level. And I think I was called Mudkip for at least 3 years after that, which is an incredibly fond memory for me. And when I see someone from Usdan, I'm still friends with so many people, but when I see someone at an audition or something who I haven't seen in a very long time, I might, "Hey, Mudkip," which immediately warms my heart and makes me, it places me right back in camp, at the exact rock that I ate lunch on. So that is something I associate a lot with my time at that connects the work that I was doing outside of Usdan with Usdan.
First of all, that's so cute. I'm so tempted to call you Mudkip now, just for the rest of the panel. But
I resented it for a little bit because someone on YouTube remixed my voice and made a thing. It was an OG meme of I thought it was funny to put the line was, "I am Mudkip," and I thought it was funny, and I imagine I booked the job because I put an enormous pause between "I" and "am Mudkip," and I guess people thought it was a little self-serious, so it was remixed and it was over YouTube. And one of the first things that I remember being "Oh, this is everywhere." So I resented it for a little bit. Now would give anything to have that back.
I was going to ask if you could just casually just put that link in the chat. We'd all really appreciate it.
I could find it. I imagine it's still up there.
I'm going to give you a couple, take your time if you can.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. And that's cool because I know also when you were, growing up, you also did little things on SNL, and you did things like the Late Show with David Letterman. Am I correct? As well as Sesame Street. So you had you were.
Yeah, I was working. It was always 24/7. It was it always felt hard to commit to anything else because which is wonderful. I always had opportunities.
Yeah.
But I was always working, which was really wonderful. But in retrospect, I may have devoted a bit more time to what Usdan provided me with, which the industry doesn't necessarily provide you with at that age, which is being a part of a company, being able to like actually develop in a way that benefits you later, not just work and work and work, and then eventually feel a little thrown off by what it feels like to be on stage in a real way, not in a way that I think everyone gets a sense of what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And we got even someone from the chat, Lenia, saying that is so beautiful, Nikki. That's from Olivia. And then someone saying thank you for sharing that specifically. So there we go. All right, guys, I guess I'll ask you my next question, which is right now, what are ways for you to stay creative when you're not in the middle of something, right? So what I mean by that, as actors, we know there's a lot of down periods sometimes, whether it's a hiatus from something or whether you're just not booking anything for a while, or specifically, I like to say we just got out of the pandemic because it makes me feel better, but in general, exactly, we're still kind of in it, but in the sort of craziness of the first year when everything shut down really, and there wasn't much going on, there was even more of a hiatus for everyone and there was less opportunities. So during this time, and also the reason why I like to ask this too is because we sometimes incorrectly always focus on the success and how great it is and like all the amazing things, but I think it's incredibly important as actors for us to represent there's also the other side of it, which is, you know, it's an up and down, as we all know. So what do you guys do to stay creative during the downtime, during the hiatus for things, between bookings? What are ways for you guys to stay creative? And anyone can answer.
I learned how to sew during the pandemic. And so I became a quilter, and I've made a ton of quilts for my family and friends. I also started making some clothing, and I make, oh gosh, I wish I had one handy. I have these little like stuffed monster doll things that I make for friends who are pregnant because they're great for little kids.
Oh, wow.
So I did a lot of that.
You just casually have something nearby because I kind of want to see it now, but no pressure.
You can, if you want, I can send a picture or
sure. Yeah. Send a picture.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. That sounds so cool. And you're getting a lot of people. Yeah. Throw it in the chat.
I'll throw it in the chat.
Who else? Anything creative?
So during the pandemic, I did a lot of different things. I started writing,
Nice.
Which I feel like just in general, as an actor, writing is a great skill to have, because if you write something, you can cast yourself in it. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but it is true. I think that you know, having the skill of being able to like create the work from the ground up. So I've also been getting into directing recently, looking to direct like film and TV work, because I think that, you know, you can always kind of work in yourself into something, or you get a sort of more holistic view of how these things are created. And when you know how something is written and how to direct something, and you know what the costume designers are doing, if you know how to sew, or if you know about lighting design, which I do because I went to design school for college. I was a lighting design major for 4 years, so a lot of different skill sets. I think it just helps as an actor to understand those things, because you understand what everybody else is doing when you're on set or when you're on stage. You know, there's so many people that work in this industry. I saw someone talking about stage managers in the chat. There's stage managers, there's designers, you know, there's directors, there's stage hands, there's, you know, ushers, all these people. And a lot of times as actors, we can get tunnel vision and we can think it's only about being on stage or only about being on camera. And there's even more so when you're on a set, right? There's PAs, there's people that are handling, you know, lunch and catering and all those things. And So the more that you know about what those people do and how they contribute to the process, I think the more gracious of an actor you can be, and I think the more people will like you when you're on set. I think it just helps all around. I also learned how to play piano. So those things.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you specified specifically this idea of writing for yourself, because I think as an actor, people really don't understand that, like, a lot of time we get to a place where we're looking for opportunities, but we're waiting for people to choose us for their stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, combating that, like with making your own work, I wish I knew that earlier. Like, I wish I knew to like make work as early as possible and start that muscle. So for you guys out there, for the kids, for anyone who wants to be an actor, like, make your own work now. Like, put together something with a camera or a phone, or put a performance together somewhere. I had Tony Goldwyn on my podcast, who's an actor, and he was saying that he used to do plays in his friends' lofts apartments. Like, they would just do plays, and they invited people in the industry, and that's how he got his first agent. It's like, I wish I knew that. But yeah, so I love that you're writing, and I love that you learned how to play piano. Victoria, Nicky, anything come to mind? Or Joanne? Actually, yes, we already went over. Yeah.
In a similar, I totally agree with everything that was just said. Finding some way to have autonomy in your career when it's going to be feast or famine. There are going to be highs and lows, regardless of the like cosmic, what felt like a low for all of us, of not a lot of work, for not a lot of opportunities to perform for a year and a half, 2 years. During the pandemic, I started a theater company. And to piggyback off of what I was saying earlier about Usdan providing us with real collaborators, I started the company with a friend from Usdan and a friend who I met via another friend from Usdan who'd done a show with them. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, it was the best thing in the world. And we were doing benefit readings, and we were eventually going to be doing in-person live streamed performances. But we started, all three of us, we had, I think, 8 board members at that time, but there were 3 founding members, all who were from Usdan or tangential to Usdan. And we all booked something right at the same time as things were opening up again last year. And so what was the company kind of didn't necessarily fall apart, but was pushed to the side as other work took precedence. But knowing that there was a thrill to collaborating with people who I had a shorthand with, of like 10 years of, oh, you remember the thing you did when we were 13? You improv'd a bit when we were on stage at Usdan for this month. Yeah, do that. And that like collective shorthand provides you with an amount of trust that is hard to get to with someone you've met like the week before and booking a job. So that was a wonderful way to teach me how to have autonomy in my career, teach me what how wonderful it is to have collaborators who I met when I was young and developing as a performer. And also, as Larry was just saying, there's 1,000 disciplines in the industry, and familiarizing yourself with all of them gives you a different kind of respect than a cerebral respect of knowing how difficult a certain craft might be. Having done it or tried to do it gives you a really hands-on way of understanding and empathizing with what someone else is going through, and then being there for them in the way that on stage or on set might be more beneficial than if you had no idea what that person needed at that moment in time, regardless.
Yeah. Well, there's so much from that, but I really love the fact that you kept in touch with so many Usdan people and are forming all these creative ventures with them. And I think you're right. I think for anyone out there, do the same thing. Like, you know, get your Usdan friends together, get people who are doing this with you, and like come together and create things like Nicky. That's so cool.
Yeah. I wish I'd done it at the time.
I know, me too. I feel the same way. And then Victoria, these pictures are so cool. That is so awesome that you do this. I don't know if everyone else downloaded this, but it's amazing.
It's I made that shirt. That's why I sent that one, the striped shirt.
Oh.
And then that's just one of many quilts. And then the little monster guys, they've been very popular. So I just made those yesterday, actually, the ones in that
They're
photo.
so cool. Thank you.
very
And then
ugly in the best way.
they're not. I love them so much. And then Joanne, how about you?
Hey, thanks. These are so adorable. I'm so
I
excited
know.
to get to see them. I I did a bunch of readings. I did a bunch of online concerts, and that was an interesting experience, like trying to figure out how to look good and sound
On
good.
Zoom.
And Zoom, it was a nightmare. But the thing that I really did was sort of in the same line of sort of making sure that you have control in a world that's essentially out of our control. So I decided to go back to school and get a master's in labor relations. And I am now in the last ends of my master's. And I have, of course, because I'm dealing with my own industry, and the point is to make my industry better. I am writing my capstone thesis, and I think, and you can all give me feedback if you want, but I think I'm going to be writing about the stigma surrounding illness and injury for performers on and off Broadway. And I'm seeing that because with COVID, we have a lot of enforced, you have to go home if you're sick. But in the before times, we all came to work injured, sick. There was always that, oh, the show must go on. And it was internal, and it was from the company, and it was from our stage managers and our performers. There's so much about not doing our self-care. And so that's what I'm going to be writing my paper about, because I think that it's a structural thing, and I think that we'll be able to maybe fix our industry. So if anyone would like to be interviewed and surveyed, let me know. But that's what I did with my 2-year vacation.
That is so cool. Well, congratulations.
That's
a
brilliant.
big deal.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
so important. Such important work. Thank you.
Yes. And I will say, good for you, Laurie, for doing your writing early, because going back to school and learning how to write again, I was like, oh yeah, I was a good student. I remember what that felt like, but it took a minute.
There's transitions. Oh, yes. I've got to go back to school right now. Okay, so now I'm going to ask questions from the audience. We've gotten some great questions. Feel free to keep adding them, but I'll definitely just try to get through them. So from Lenia, we got, as a child or teenager, what motivated you to return to Usdan each summer, and what kept you coming back for more? This is for anyone.
Flintstones push pops.
Yeah, I got that. Definitely. I'm getting that from, that's important.
No, I just loved it. Honestly, I was very much a driven theater kid, and Usdan was the first camp that I had gone to that was so like theater centric and theater focused, where I would arrive on campus and be surrounded by my kind of weirdo. And that was a wonderful thing to discover. And I looked forward to that every summer. And I think that has carried forward into my career, because I audition every day with weirdos. I get to do my shows with weirdos. I mean, like, and I say that lovingly, I'm a weirdo. Like, we are all, kooky,
Our own
out of the
brand
box
of weirdos.
Yeah. And I think it was the perfect stomping grounds to start finding ourselves in that way.
I love that. Anyone want to add on?
I'll just tack on. Now, I didn't just do the theater department. I also, because I was a ballet
What
major,
else did you do? Because you said ballet.
well,
Right,
I was
I
a
remember you said
ballet
that.
major, and I did rec one summer. I did painting one summer, and I learned how to play the guitar. And
Nice.
that's one, being able to sort of explore all of those different aspects, all those different artistic aspects, was really fantastic. And the guitar came in really handy when so I did once on Broadway, and I played the piano and I played the accordion. But then when I got there, they were like, you also need to learn how to play drums and the what is it called? The melodica. Thank you, John Batiste, for making the melodica safe for humanity. and I had to learn how to play the ukulele. But because I had learned how to play the guitar at Usdan, it was actually quite easy for me to take those skills and move them over. So, everything you learn becomes part of who you are, and you never know when you're going to need it. So it was great. And then the theater department, which was so everything.
I love it. Thank you. And Larry, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a large part of the reason that I was going back is because my parents worked there and we were a family thing. But
Yep.
that became part of like my identity. Like being a Usdan family was like so important to me when I was growing up, and I wanted that lifer pin. Like that was my thing. Like I need to go for at least, I think at the time it was 8 years for students, and if you went for 8 years, you got the lifer pin. And I was like, I need to get the pin. I need to be a lifer. And I did, and I was, and I am. And I think like I would try. So that was like one of the things, kind of what Joanne was saying. So my major was always theater as soon as I was old enough. But I did a different minor every year. And that was like the one thing that my parents kind of always said that I had to do, is like, if I was going to do theater, I needed to do a different minor every year so that I was like learning different things. So I did ceramics, I did painting, I was in like a sculpture class. I did tap dance, which tap dance is still a very big part of my life. It's part of the reason why I was cast in High School Musical, was that I'm still a tap dancer. I did the nature program, which was one of my favorite things at Usdan, the nature and design program that they had. And I did like jazz band. I played the bass in jazz band. So all of these things, I was all over the camp, like every single day. That's like, I think part of the special thing about Usdan is that you're doing all of those things all the time.
Excellent. All right, another question. Oh, like Nicky, did you want to jump in?
I totally agree with everything that was just said. Something that was so wonderful was getting to balance how specialized the theater training was with, I'm around people of all disciplines from an area of the performing arts that is so far removed from, or what I think is removed from, acting or musical theater. And yet it all connects, and yet we're all hanging out. Later on, I think a driving force was the training and how rigorous the training was and how it felt. I could see that it was putting me at an advantage amongst other people in the industry who didn't have that and didn't have a place to go back to with the same people every year, to have like an early sense of what it was like being in a conservatory. But through the 10 years, it was the people. It was like, these were my best friends.
Yeah.
And the whole school year was spent counting the days until I could be back at camp with my best friends. Yeah, I can't overstate how much of a driving force getting to be a lifer was before that, as Larry just said, of like getting the pin. I was totally obsessed with in a very weird way. And
what is this pin? Does anyone have one? I was only there for like 3 summers, so I've never heard of this.
Are you wearing a pin?
I'm not wearing one, but I definitely have one somewhere. I want to say,
anyone here have one?
Wow. I just like to point out, it was so important to Larry and Nicky, and yet.
So I don't have it here, but my mom is on this call. Ma, if you guys are home, can you go into my room and get the pin? I think it's on the shelf.
That's so funny.
Quietly
in
judging.
a box, I think.
So,
I didn't want to wear it because I didn't want to make
happening.
anyone who doesn't have one feel bad.
He wasn't a lifer. I get, and I appreciate that, Nicky. The jealousy is not real. Well, while that's happening, hopefully Larry's parents are like not inconvenienced and going to get this pin, because I'm curious too.
She said, I will look.
But no pressure if you can't find it. But anyway, I'll ask another question. We're getting a lot of really good questions from Gisela Stevens, specifically about like, how do you get an audition? How do you get yourself out there? Like, how do you audition for plays and shows? And how do you get yourself out there as a kid? So I wanted to kind of combine a couple of our questions and ask you guys, like, what would you recommend? Is there like a tip that you'd recommend on getting yourself out there and like doing this now? Not all at once, guys.
I mean, I can speak to this a bit, or sorry, Nicky, I don't know if you What did it
On
say?
my pins, by the way.
Please, please.
Here you have your
Oh.
pins.
There you go, yeah.
Here
I
is
have-
the
what that
yes.
looks like.
old one from when I was a camper.
That's the one that I have.
Okay.
And then here's one of the ones from our
Can you
50th.
pin,
And
Kyra?
I also have that one.
So here,
It's like I have
Yes.
both. I
I
promise.
have both because I was at the 50th gala, I think.
Yo,
my
I want an
God.
honorary. I need an honorary pin.
There's
Okay.
my mom. There's my mom. There's my mom. She's
Oh,
showing it.
there's. Oh, I see it now. I see.
Oh, it's
Larry's
upside down,
pin.
Ma. So there you go.
Listen,
Excellent.
I'm
like
Oh,
Larry,
thank you for
okay?
getting
Larry,
that.
I was on the brochure too. Okay, so like,
That should be a pin.
where's my pin?
The
Where's my
program
brochure
pin.
shaped pin?
This panel hopefully will give us pins. Just kidding.
All right.
But excellent. Thanks. I'm glad I got to see it visually. But what yeah, any
It's pretty.
answers about to Giselle about like how to start?
Yeah, I was like a showbiz kid, so I got my manager when I was like 10 years old, and I was like always doing auditions for theater and stuff all through. Even a lot of times while I was at camp, I would have to push auditions back so that I could like go into New York City later in the day so that I could do the audition and I wouldn't have to miss camp because I hated missing camp for auditions. I wanted to be at camp. Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, if there's, I don't know if everybody is in the New York area. I think for me, one of the best things was like being in New York City as much as possible and taking as many classes, dance classes, voice lessons, all those things in New York City as much as possible. I know that now that is, especially now, that's not possible for everyone. So I think community theater or any theater in your local area is huge and was huge for me and my development as an actor. I made so many friends at Usdan that also did community theater on Long Island. And so I would do those shows, different places on Long Island. There was like CAP, there's CM, over by where I'm from, Islip, there's like CM and all those other community theaters. So Long Island theater is amazing, and a lot of us are Long Islanders. So that was a huge part of my growing up. And what's great is like the Usdan community is all over Long Island. So so I would do shows with them throughout the year as well, and then I would get to go do a show with them over the summer. So so for me, those two things were really huge.
Love those answers, Larry. Does anyone, I think we have time maybe for one of you guys to maybe answer anything come to mind as advice?
I don't want to take long because Nikki actually has experience as a child actor. I do not, but I will say it's also okay to have a childhood.
Yeah.
To not feel like you need to immediately start going into the industry while you are a child. Like you don't have to do that. You can go to camp and you can do community theater on Long Island and have a wonderful time without the additional pressure of what it's like to do this professionally. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but I want to say I didn't, and I am actually quite grateful for the childhood I had and for the college experience that I had. So that's all I'm going to say on that point.
It's a great perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Nikki, did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. First, really savor those moments. Agreeing with that and what Larry was saying earlier, I remember sulking at an audition for a Toyota commercial because I had to miss a party at camp for the day after we did our show in 2006 for On the Town. And in retrospect, that would have been a wonderful memory, whereas that audition, even if I had booked that job, would have been, it wouldn't mean the same thing now, that having that moment as a child the night after or the day after we'd done our show together would have meant. But to give a resource to say the exact opposite,
Please.
there are various schools in the city that they'll have maybe like 4 to 5 week classes where it's once a week, and at the end of it there'll be a showcase in front of casting directors, agents, managers. I don't know who or which programs are currently open right now. Some of the schools have closed during the pandemic. I was helping out at a school and like teaching at a school that closed right before the pandemic. Actors Connection is a great one.
Actors Connection is great.
Yeah, Green Room, Kimball. There are various studios in the city that have classes specifically targeted towards a specific age range. And then at the end of it, they'll put you up in front of representation in the industry. That is a really, really great way for you to, I hate the word network, but get a sense of,
I think networking, great.
network and get a sense of allowing people in the industry to get a sense of who you are at a young age and then be able to see you grow, but also savor having a childhood.
Yeah, I mean, both are important. I mean, and also I'll add one-on-one. I think they do a lot of things for kids as well.
Yes.
I mean, really, I think a lot of people don't know this, but in order to get the auditions for big stuff, you know, for the TV shows, for the films, even for big theater shows, you really do need representation, an agent or a manager. So that is probably a good step. But like Nicky said, if you join a class in one of the major cities, often they're going to also be able to help push you towards that, or like recommend someone for you. But again, like Victoria said, I'll just share a quick thing. When I was a kid, I did an off-Broadway show for a while and I loved it, but it was really difficult for my family. And like my mother had to pay for cab rides to go to rehearsal every day and go to shows every day. And there was, a showcase where we did like, what was it, like 8 performances a week. And I remember my mom being like, we can't do this again. Like, this is too hard for you. Like, I'm deciding for us that this is too difficult. And at the time I was like, wait, this is my dream. This is what I want. But I'm glad she did, and I appreciated that. So every family makes their own decision. It's not just, what we want as kids. Sometimes it's too hard. And like, it's a lot for our parents as well. And camps like Usdan, we're so like, and just to go right into the next thing, please come to these things. Please come to our next one. Again, it's on April 20th, which is a Wednesday. It's our music panel at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I wrote a little question in the audience. What do you want to see in a future panel? Like if there's something specific, if it's a kind of event, specifically virtual, maybe in person and coming back to camp would be kind of cool too. But let us know. We'd love to start creating workshops for you guys, more panels for you guys. Maybe we'll do an agent panel. We have some really great agents that are also alum. So there's different things we could do, but send us your thoughts on this. And for any alums in the audience, for other ways to stay connected with us, we're going to include a special referral discount for friends and family. So if there are people who are like, hey, I know someone who'd be great, and this reminds me of how amazing Usdan is, we'll give you a promo, we'll give you information on that. Ooh, someone said a parent panel. That would be cool. Yeah, that's a whole other perspective that we wouldn't normally get to hear from. So just a quick thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Larry. And thank you, Nicky. This has been so lovely for me, and I'm sure all of us, to hear from you guys. Thank you, Olivia and Kyra, for helping to organize this wonderful panel. We appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone who came to this. Thank you for coming together. Thank you, Lauren, in the crowd. I want to give her a little shout out, but thank you to everyone for attending this, for asking such great questions. And we hope to see you next time, and we appreciate you. So thank you.